The Arctic ice has a strange way of preserving secrets. For centuries, explorers, submarines, and remote scientific stations have vanished beneath its dark waters, leaving behind little more than questions. Some were lost to violent storms, others disappeared beneath shifting fields of ice, and a few simply stopped transmitting, as though the ocean itself had chosen to erase them. Most of those stories faded with time, but not all of them. Some remain hidden beneath silence, waiting patiently for someone to listen again. In October of 1962, a Soviet underwater listening station concealed beneath the Arctic ice recorded a sound unlike anything its operators had ever encountered. At first, the signal seemed insignificant, a brief anomaly, the kind of disturbance technicians observed every day beneath the frozen ocean. But this signal was different. It was metallic, rhythmic, artificial, and completely unknown. The operators replayed the recording repeatedly. Each time the pattern remained exactly the same. There were no distortions, no fluctuations, no indication that the transmission had been caused by natural forces beneath the ice. At first, technicians attributed the phenomenon to pressure within the frozen Arctic shelf, an unusual acoustic reflection, perhaps a malfunction somewhere inside the monitoring system. Yet the signal returned, again and again and again, always with the same impossible precision. The operators listened for nearly 17 minutes before the transmission stopped as suddenly as it had begun, without warning, without explanation. Within hours, the report was classified. The original recordings were transferred into Soviet military archives. Personnel connected to the incident were reassigned. Internal references to the event became increasingly difficult to find, and over time, the signal seemed to disappear from history itself. For decades. For decades, no one spoke publicly about the signal ever again. The report remained buried inside military archives. The recordings vanished from official records, and those who had witnessed the event moved on with their lives. Or, at least, that is what the documents suggest. The world continued to change. The Cold War deepened. Across the Arctic, submarines moved silently beneath vast sheets of drifting ice. American vessels, Soviet vessels, machines carrying enough destructive power to alter the course of history. Far above them, the frozen ocean appeared calm, silent, unchanging. But beneath the ice, the darkness was never truly empty. The Arctic depths had become one of the most closely monitored regions on Earth. Listening stations operated day and night. Hydrophones recorded every vibration, every echo, every distant mechanical sound. Operators learned to recognize entire worlds hidden beneath the ocean. A propeller turning hundreds of kilometers away. The song of a whale moving through cold water. The groaning pressure of shifting ice. Every sound told a story, and most stories eventually found an explanation. Ice pressure, geological activity, equipment malfunction, human error. The ocean was vast, but it was rarely mysterious for long. Yet a small number of recordings refused to fit any known category. The signal from 1962 became one of them. Years later, fragments of declassified documents would reveal the same phrase appearing again and again throughout internal reports. Unknown origin, a simple description, only 2 words. Yet they disturbed analysts more than the recording itself. Military operators were trained to identify everything they heard: enemy submarines, communication systems, natural phenomena, mechanical interference. The unknown had little place inside their profession. And yet, the signal beneath the Arctic ice matched nothing. No vessel, no installation, no known acoustic phenomenon, nothing. As years became decades, the mystery slowly faded from public memory. Researchers retired, archives closed, governments changed. The signal became little more than a forgotten footnote hidden inside aging files, a curiosity from another era, a problem that no longer mattered, or so it seemed, because 35 years later, the silence ended. Far from the Soviet station that had first recorded the anomaly, a remote acoustic facility near northern Greenland detected something unexpected, a familiar frequency, emerging once again from beneath the Arctic ice. The pattern matched the original recording with astonishing accuracy. The same rhythm, the same timing, the same metallic pulse. For the first time in decades, the signal had returned. For most researchers, the discovery was little more than an interesting anomaly, an unexplained acoustic event, one more mystery hidden beneath the Arctic ice. Most assumed a solution would eventually emerge. It always did. Given enough time, enough data, and enough investigation, the unknown usually became known, but not everyone shared that confidence, because somewhere, thousands of kilometers away, one man had spent years searching for answers that never came. His name was Dr. Elias Mercer. Long before the signal resurfaced near Greenland, Mercer had become fascinated by a peculiar category of historical records, forgotten anomalies, incidents that appeared briefly in official archives before disappearing without explanation. Unusual radar contacts, missing transmissions, classified sonar recordings, events that generated questions, but never received answers. Most researchers avoided such subjects. The evidence was often incomplete. Documents contradicted one another. Witnesses disappeared. Records were altered. Entire investigations simply ended. Mercer found that strangely compelling. He believed forgotten mysteries revealed something important about the institutions that buried them. Not because every mystery concealed a secret, but because someone had once considered them important enough to hide. Over the years, he developed a reputation among colleagues for pursuing cases others considered hopeless. Old military reports, archived scientific studies, declassified intelligence documents. Mercer collected them all. His office slowly filled with boxes containing copies of records few people had ever bothered to read. Most led nowhere. Equipment failures, administrative errors, misidentified natural phenomena, stories that seemed extraordinary until evidence revealed otherwise. But one case refused to disappear. The signal from 1962. The deeper Mercer investigated, the stranger the story became. Official references were scarce. Dates conflicted. Coordinates changed from one document to another. Entire sections appeared to have been removed. Yet despite the inconsistencies, certain details remained remarkably consistent. The signal, the duration, the classification order, and above all, the location. Again and again, Mercer encountered references pointing toward the same remote region beneath the Arctic ice, nearly 900 meters below the surface, far from established shipping routes, far from permanent settlements, far from anywhere a reasonable explanation should exist. At first, Mercer believed the answer might be military. A forgotten Cold War project, an experimental listening system, perhaps even a lost submarine installation. But every lead ended the same way. Nothing matched, no vessel, no platform, no known technology. The deeper he searched, the less sense the case appeared to make. Years passed. The mystery remained. Most people eventually abandoned questions that refused to provide answers. Mercer did not. If anything, the uncertainty only strengthened his determination, because buried beneath countless contradictions, missing pages, and fading archives, a simple fact continued to survive. Something beneath the Arctic ice had transmitted a signal no one could explain, and 35 years later, it had happened again. For Mercer, that changed everything. The mystery was no longer a historical curiosity. It was a living phenomenon, and for the first time in years, he believed there might be a chance to find its source. What he did not yet realize was that the search would take him far beyond anything he imagined. For years, the location existed only as a collection of numbers, coordinates buried inside fragmented reports, a point on a map that appeared, disappeared, and reappeared throughout decades of documentation. Most people would have dismissed it, a clerical error, an inaccurate record, a mistake repeated often enough to appear significant. Mercer considered that possibility. In fact, he hoped it was true. Simple explanations are comforting. They bring mysteries to an end, but the deeper he investigated, the more difficult that explanation became. The coordinates continued to surface in unrelated archives, naval reports, scientific surveys, military communications, different documents, different decades, different authors. Yet somehow the same location remained. At first, Mercer assumed there had to be a practical reason. Perhaps the area contained an abandoned military installation, a Cold War monitoring station, a lost submarine wreck, something tangible, something human. But every search produced the same result: nothing. No registered structure, no recorded construction, no known activity capable of producing the signal. The region appeared empty, which only made the mystery more disturbing. One evening, while reviewing a collection of declassified records, Mercer noticed something unusual. Several documents referenced the same coordinates, yet the descriptions surrounding them had been removed. Entire paragraphs were missing. Pages had been redacted. Sections ended abruptly in the middle of sentences. It was not proof, but it was enough to raise a troubling question. What had been written there originally? The possibility haunted him, not because he believed a conspiracy existed, but because information had clearly disappeared, and information rarely vanishes without a reason. Months later, Mercer assembled every surviving reference he could find. Maps covered his office walls, strings connected reports separated by decades, photographs, annotations, and handwritten notes filled every available surface. The deeper he looked, the more one conclusion emerged. Whatever had generated the signal was still there, waiting beneath the Arctic ice, at a depth of nearly 900 meters, hidden in one of the most remote regions on Earth. For years, the idea remained little more than a theory, a fascinating possibility, nothing more. Then the signal returned. Everything changed. Suddenly, the coordinates were no longer part of an old mystery. They became a destination, a place that could be reached, a place that could be explored, a place that might finally provide answers. Mercer began contacting research institutions, universities, private foundations, anyone willing to listen. Most declined. The proposal sounded improbable, expensive, risky. Some considered it a waste of resources. Others quietly suggested that he move on. But Mercer persisted. Weeks became months. Months became years. Eventually, one organization agreed to support a limited expedition. Not because they believed his theory, but because the possibility of discovering something unknown beneath the Arctic ice was too intriguing to ignore. For the first time in decades, someone was preparing to visit the location. The coordinates were no longer numbers on a page. They were becoming a journey. And somewhere beneath the frozen darkness, something was waiting. Long before the signal was decoded, before the anomaly revealed its first secrets, there was the ship. Research vessels rarely attract attention. They are not designed to inspire. They are built to endure. Cold, isolation, distance. The Tethys was no exception. At first glance, it appeared ordinary. A reinforced Arctic research vessel designed for scientific operations in some of the harshest environments on Earth. Its steel hull carried the scars of countless encounters with drifting ice. Layers of paint had been stripped away by years of wind, salt, and freezing temperatures. Nothing about the vessel seemed remarkable. And yet, for the men and women aboard, the Tethys had become an entire world. Weeks at sea have a strange effect on people. The routines become familiar. The days begin to blend together. Time loses some of its meaning. Breakfast, maintenance checks, weather reports, equipment inspections, the same conversations repeated across the same corridors, again and again. Beyond the ship existed only ice, dark water, and endless Arctic sky. Many members of the crew had spent years working in polar regions. They understood the dangers, the cold, the storms, the isolation. What they did not understand was why the atmosphere aboard the vessel had changed so suddenly. Since the discovery beneath the ice, something felt different. Conversations ended more quickly. Silences lasted longer. Crew members found themselves staring toward the ocean without realizing it. Even those with no direct involvement in the investigation seemed affected, as though the anomaly had introduced an invisible weight aboard the ship. Captain Sørensen noticed it first. Experience had taught him to recognize the moods of a vessel. Ships, like people, developed personalities. And the Tethys no longer felt like a research vessel. It felt like a place waiting for something to happen. Mercer spent most of his time reviewing data collected from the anomaly. Maps covered his cabin walls, printouts accumulated across every available surface. He slept little, thought constantly, and each new discovery seemed only to create additional questions. Anton rarely left the sonar room. The signal continued repeating beneath the ice. Steady, precise, patient, waiting. Sometimes crew members stopped outside the compartment simply to listen. No one admitted doing it, yet many did. The transmission had become impossible to ignore. Outside, Arctic conditions continued deteriorating. Fog drifted across the ocean, temperatures dropped, visibility decreased. Daylight seemed weaker with every passing hour. The world beyond the ship was slowly disappearing, and somewhere beneath that frozen darkness, the source of the signal remained perfectly still, waiting for them, or perhaps waiting for something else. There comes a point during every polar expedition when the familiar world begins to disappear. No announcement marks the transition, no visible border exists, and yet everyone aboard eventually notices it. The change arrives gradually, almost imperceptibly. A little less daylight, a little more fog, a little more silence, until one day the outside world feels impossibly far away. For the crew of the Tethys, that moment arrived during the second week at sea. Communication remained operational. Weather reports continued arriving. Navigation systems functioned normally. Yet something had changed. The Arctic seemed to be closing around them. Fog drifted endlessly across the water. The horizon vanished. Sea and sky merged into a single field of grey. Distances became difficult to judge. Even experienced sailors found themselves staring into the mist longer than necessary, searching for landmarks that did not exist. Mercer spent most evenings alone on the observation deck. The cold no longer bothered him. His thoughts remained fixed on the anomaly beneath the ice. The coordinates, the signal, the structure, the questions. Each answer seemed to create two new mysteries. Sometimes he imagined the location beneath them. 900 meters below the frozen ocean, hidden in darkness that no sunlight had touched for thousands of years, waiting. The idea returned to him constantly, waiting, as though the structure possessed a patience beyond human understanding. One evening, Anton joined him on deck. Neither man spoke for several minutes. The wind carried ice crystals across the railings while distant fog swallowed the horizon completely. Finally, Anton broke the silence. "Do you ever feel like we're being drawn somewhere?" Mercer glanced toward him. "What do you mean?" Anton hesitated, then shrugged. "I don't know. The signal, the location. It feels less like we're searching for it, and more like it's leading us." Mercer did not answer immediately, because part of him had begun wondering the same thing. The thought was irrational, perhaps even ridiculous, yet it refused to disappear. Below them, hidden beneath nearly a kilometre of freezing water, something continued transmitting. The same rhythm, the same intervals, the same patient sequence, day after day, hour after hour, without interruption, as though it had all the time in the world. That night, the fog became thicker than ever. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The Tethys moved forward slowly, carefully, surrounded by silence, above the ice, above the darkness, above a mystery that seemed to grow larger with every passing mile, and somewhere beneath them, the signal continued. The Nautilus archives continue to expand thanks to those who accompany these investigations. If you would like to join future expeditions into the unknown, consider subscribing to the channel, and to ensure you never miss a newly declassified report, enable notifications and join us for the next investigation. Now let us return to the file. The Arctic has a way of altering a person's sense of scale. Distances become meaningless. Time stretches, horizons disappear. Days pass without leaving a clear memory behind. For those who have never experienced it, the phenomenon is difficult to describe. The landscape appears empty, yet the emptiness itself becomes overwhelming. Every direction looks the same: ice, fog, dark water, endless repetition. During the third week of the expedition, the crew of the Tethys began feeling the effects. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually, subtly. The changes appeared in small ways: longer pauses during conversations, sleepless nights, moments of distraction. Crew members occasionally forgot simple tasks before remembering them seconds later. No one considered it unusual. The Arctic had always affected people that way. Isolation changes the mind. Silence changes the mind. Routine changes the mind. And there was no shortage of any of those things aboard the Tethys. Outside conditions continued deteriorating. The fog rarely lifted now. Even during daylight hours, visibility remained limited. The world beyond the ship seemed reduced to a circle of grey, extending only a few hundred meters in every direction. Beyond that, nothing. Or at least, nothing visible. Mercer found himself spending increasing amounts of time studying old expedition records. Not Soviet reports, older records, whaling vessels, explorers, polar research teams, anything connected to the region. Most contained nothing useful, yet certain details appeared repeatedly. Strange sounds, unusual compass behavior, reports of lights moving beneath the ice. The descriptions varied, the explanations differed, but the locations often overlapped. Not perfectly, but enough to attract his attention. One night he spread several maps across the table in his cabin. Dozens of markings covered the Arctic Ocean. Years separated many of the reports, sometimes decades. Yet a pattern slowly emerged. A corridor, a region, a path hidden beneath the ice. Mercer stared at the maps for a long time. The realization made him uncomfortable, because the patterns seemed to lead toward the same area where the signal had originated, the same area where the anomaly now waited. Coincidence remained the most likely explanation. At least that is what he told himself. Yet certainty felt increasingly difficult to maintain. Meanwhile, the transmission continued, unchanged, consistent, patient, as though time meant nothing to it. The crew slept, worked, ate, waited. The signal endured. Outside, Arctic ice shifted somewhere beyond the fog. The sound echoed faintly through the darkness. A deep groan, ancient, distant, almost alive. Several crew members later admitted they had heard it that night, and none of them enjoyed the experience for reasons they could not explain. The feeling lingered long after the sound itself had disappeared, like a memory that refused to fade, or a warning that had not yet been understood. Most discoveries arrive without ceremony, no music, no dramatic announcement, no clear indication that history is about to change. They begin as ordinary moments, a routine observation, a minor anomaly, a detail that seems insignificant. The discovery aboard the Tethys began at 2:14 in the morning. Most of the crew were asleep. The ship moved slowly through dense Arctic fog. Outside winds scraped across steel railings while drifting ice pressed softly against the hull. Inside the sonar room, Anton Volkov sat alone. The night shift had become familiar. Hours of monitoring screens, hours of listening, hours of waiting. The signal continued repeating beneath the ice. Steady, patient, unchanging. Anton had heard it hundreds of times, perhaps thousands. Yet something felt different that night. At first he could not explain why. The waveform appeared normal. The intervals remained unchanged. The transmission repeated exactly as before, but instinct told him to keep watching. So he did, minute after minute. Silence filled the compartment. Only the soft pulse of the sonar disturbed the darkness. Then something changed. The anomaly appeared. At first it looked like interference, a distortion hidden beneath layers of acoustic noise. Anton adjusted the display. The shape remained. He adjusted it again, still there. A long metallic outline emerged slowly from the darkness beneath the ice. Artificial, symmetrical, impossible. Anton stared at the screen. For several seconds he forgot to breathe. The coordinates matched the Soviet reports precisely, not approximately, exactly. 900 meters below the surface, the same location, the same anomaly, the same mystery. Waiting. Anton replayed the scan, then again and again. Each sweep produced the same result. Whatever rested beneath the ice was real, physical, present. Not a recording, not a legend, not a mistake. His hand moved instinctively toward the intercom. For a moment he hesitated, because he understood what the discovery meant. Everything was about to change. Finally, he pressed the call button. A few minutes later, footsteps echoed through the corridor. Mercer entered first. Captain Sørensen followed shortly after. Neither man spoke immediately. Anton simply pointed toward the monitor. The room fell silent. 3 men stood staring at the impossible shape beneath the Arctic ice. None of them fully understood what they were looking at. But all of them understood one thing. The mystery was no longer hidden inside archives. It was beneath them, and it was waiting. For several minutes, no one spoke. The monitor cast a pale green glow across the sonar room. Outside, the Arctic remained hidden behind fog and darkness. Inside, 3 men stared at a shape that should not have existed. The image itself was imperfect. A collection of acoustic reflections assembled into a rough outline. Yet certain details were impossible to ignore. The symmetry, the proportions, the unmistakable suggestion of design. Natural formations rarely produced such geometry. Mercer leaned closer to the display. His eyes moved slowly across the contours. The structure appeared elongated, narrow, almost streamlined, not unlike a vessel. The thought immediately troubled him, because the dimensions made little sense. It was too large for any known submarine operating in the region, too intact for a wreck that had supposedly remained hidden beneath Arctic ice for decades, and far too deep for any accidental explanation. Captain Sørensen studied the image in silence. Years at sea had taught him caution. He distrusted first impressions, especially when they appeared too convenient. Eventually, he spoke. Could it be geological? Anton shook his head. The response came immediately. Not with those angles. Not with that symmetry. No one disagreed. The structure looked manufactured. The question was by whom and when. Further scans were ordered. Hour after hour, the Tethys remained above the Anomaly. Additional sonar sweeps slowly revealed more details. A curved outer profile, sections resembling compartments, linear features that appeared almost architectural. The picture remained incomplete, but each new scan strengthened the same conclusion. Something artificial rested beneath the ice. The realization spread quickly through the ship. Officially, only a small group had access to the data. Unofficially, everyone knew. Research vessels are not designed to keep secrets. Information travels through corridors faster than radio signals. By morning, speculation had already begun. A lost submarine, a classified military project, a forgotten Cold War installation. Theories multiplied with every passing hour. Mercer ignored them all. His attention remained fixed on a single question. Why had no one found it before? The Arctic had been studied for generations. Military patrols, scientific surveys, satellite observations. Entire nations had monitored these waters for decades, and yet this structure had remained hidden, waiting, silent, undisturbed, as though the ice itself had protected it. Late that evening, Anton completed another scan. The image sharpened slightly. Not enough to provide answers, but enough to deepen the mystery. A long section near the center appeared hollow, deliberately constructed, not carved by nature, not formed by geological pressure, built. The word lingered in everyone's thoughts. Built. No one said it aloud, not yet. But from that moment forward, the possibility became impossible to ignore. Whatever rested beneath the Arctic ice, someone had placed it there. The discovery of the structure should have answered questions. Instead, it created new ones. The largest of them remained unchanged. The signal. Even after the anomaly had been confirmed, the transmission continued. Steady, precise, relentless. Day and night, the same sequence emerged from beneath the Arctic ice, as though the structure itself was speaking. Mercer disliked the comparison immediately. Structures did not speak. Machines transmitted. People communicated. Signals required a source, a mechanism, a purpose. The challenge was discovering which of those explanations applied here. For the next several days, attention shifted away from the shape itself. The signal became the priority. Every available recording was reviewed: historical archives, recent detections, the original Soviet material, anything that had survived. Hours became days, days became nights. The work continued. Patterns slowly emerged, not within the structure, within the transmission. Anton noticed it first. At first, the intervals appeared random, but they were not. Tiny variations repeated themselves again and again and again. Not perfectly, but consistently. That was enough. The possibility changed everything. Natural phenomena rarely produce repetition with intention. This looked intentional. The idea spread cautiously through the research team. No one wanted to overstate the evidence. No one wanted to become the scientist remembered for a ridiculous conclusion. Yet the suspicion remained. The transmission behaved less like noise and more like information. Mercer resisted the conclusion longer than anyone. He had spent years separating facts from speculation. He understood how easily curiosity could distort judgment. But eventually, even he was forced to admit something unusual. The signal possessed structure, a rhythm hidden within a rhythm, a pattern concealed inside repetition. Late one evening, Anton began running additional analyses. The process continued for hours. Lines of data filled the monitors, sequences appeared, clusters formed, possibilities emerged. Most led nowhere, one did not. At first he assumed it was coincidence, then he repeated the process. The same result appeared again. He adjusted the parameters, the result remained again. The signal was not random. And for the first time since the expedition began, Anton became convinced of something extraordinary. Someone, or something, had intended the transmission to be understood. The realization unsettled him, not because it answered the mystery, but because it transformed it. The question was no longer, what is transmitting? The question had become, who expected a listener? By the end of the week, exhaustion had become impossible to ignore. The crew slept less, worked longer, thought constantly. The anomaly beneath the ice had transformed the expedition. No one said it openly, yet everyone understood. The mission was no longer scientific observation. It had become an investigation. Inside the sonar room, Anton continued analyzing the transmission. Every recording, every variation, every sequence. Hours of data covered the monitors. The signal no longer sounded mysterious. It sounded deliberate. That distinction mattered, because deliberate things have creators, and creators have intentions. The challenge was discovering what those intentions might be. Mercer remained cautious. Extraordinary conclusions demanded extraordinary evidence. Yet the evidence continued accumulating. The intervals repeated, the clusters repeated. Certain sequences appeared again and again throughout the recordings, not randomly, purposefully. Late one evening, Anton printed several pages of processed data and spread them across a table. Mercer joined him. For nearly an hour, neither man spoke. They simply studied the patterns, looking, comparing, searching. Then Mercer noticed something. A recurring sequence, small, simple, repeated throughout multiple recordings separated by decades. He pointed toward the page. Anton immediately saw it. The sequence appeared again, and again, and again. Neither man knew what it meant, but both understood what it represented. Consistency. The first real sign of structure. Not noise, not coincidence, structure. Over the following days, additional analyses reinforced the conclusion. The transmission appeared to contain grouped elements, units, relationships, patterns within patterns. The deeper they examined the data, the less natural it seemed, and the more intentional it appeared. The possibility remained difficult to accept, because accepting it required another question. If the transmission was a message, who had sent it, and how long had it been waiting? One night, long after most of the crew had gone to sleep, Anton remained alone with the data. Outside, the Arctic drifted silently through darkness and fog. Inside, lines of numbers filled the monitors. Hours passed. Then suddenly, something aligned. Not a translation, not a solution, just a connection. A relationship hidden within repetition. Anton stared at the screen. His pulse quickened. For the first time, he felt certain of something. The signal was not merely transmitting information, it was transmitting language. He leaned back slowly. The realization felt almost absurd, yet every piece of evidence pointed toward the same conclusion. Language. Somewhere beneath the Arctic ice. Something was trying to say something. The question was no longer whether a message existed. The question had become, what did it say? The breakthrough came shortly before dawn, not with certainty, not with celebration, and not with understanding. It arrived quietly, like every important discovery before it. Anton had been working for nearly 18 hours. The monitors blurred, numbers merged together. Coffee had long since stopped helping. Yet he continued, because the pattern refused to leave his mind. Somewhere inside the transmission, a structure existed, a language, a message. He was certain of it. The challenge was finding the point of entry, the key, the first piece. Hours earlier, he had isolated a recurring sequence, short, repeated, persistent. Now he focused entirely upon it, again and again and again. The signal repeated. The sequence returned, always in the same position, always with the same timing. Mercer arrived just before sunrise. Neither man spoke much. There was nothing left to speculate about. Only data remained. Anton pointed toward the screen. The sequence appeared once more. This time something felt different. A relationship emerged. Then another. A pattern within the pattern. A structure within the structure. Anton adjusted the translation model. The software processed the data. Seconds passed. Then a result appeared. One character. A single letter. N. Neither man moved. It could have meant nothing. Coincidence remained possible. So they continued. Hours later, another sequence aligned. A second character emerged. A. The room felt smaller suddenly. The air heavier, not because they had solved the mystery, because they had crossed a line. The transmission was communicating. That much could no longer be denied. The process continued, painfully slow, pattern after pattern, sequence after sequence. Then a third result appeared. Anton stared at the display. NAU, 3 letters, nothing more, yet something about them felt familiar. Mercer felt it too. A memory, a fragment, something buried deep within history. Hours later, as darkness returned outside the ship, the next characters appeared. TIL. The room fell silent. No one spoke. No one wanted to say the word first, because saying it would make it real. Finally, the last symbol appeared. US. For several seconds, the screen remained unchanged. One word, a single impossible word. Nautilus. The name seemed absurd, impossible, a coincidence beyond reason, and yet it remained there, unmoving, undeniable. Mercer stared at the screen. His thoughts raced through decades of research, through forgotten reports, through vanished documents, through stories most people considered fiction. Somewhere beneath nearly 900 meters of Arctic water, a transmission had repeated for decades, and now it carried a name, not coordinates, not numbers, a name. Outside, Arctic fog drifted silently across the ocean. Inside the sonar room, no one spoke because none of them knew what to say. The mystery had finally offered an answer, and somehow, the answer had made everything far more impossible than before. The screen continued glowing softly in the darkness. One word: waiting. Nautilus.